And my glasses were doing a real weird reflection. Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Backline with Rob and Adam. My name is Rob Norman. I'm author of the cool improv book, Improvising Now, A Practical Guide to Modern Improv.
And my name is Adam Cawley, alumnus of the SC Main Stooge.
Cool name. Cool
Nice.
Name of your alma mater.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Adam, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. I am in Toronto right now. I just spent the week in Montreal via Los Angeles. So it's been, and we go to Victoria very soon. So it's a lot of hotels, weird beds, travel. But good. I hadn't been to Montreal in a couple years, and I had some opportunities for some night walks. Mm-hmm. And ooh, baby, that city is so walkable and it's such a unique city in the country. And I don't know. I think it gets a lot of love, but it does feel like it's like Paris and New York combined. And maybe it's just me feeling like a bit of an outsider because I don't speak a lot of French, but it does feel like the lifestyle is different. Like it feels like there's a different mentality to socializing, to entertainment, to, for sure, for live comedy, live performance. Like if you ever see, improvisers, stand-ups, drag queens come out of Montreal, it's like, oh, there's just a different way of doing things. The last time I was there was for a bachelor party, and there was like 12 dudes, and we were all on the kind of back rooftop patio, and we were drinking like beer and pizza or something. And then we look over, and there's this family on their rooftop, and they were drinking wine with a charcuterie board and big long baguette. And I was like, oh, right. Like there's just a different expectation of like, oh, we're having company. We're doing it up. And I always feel like, anytime I get a chance to go there, I get a little slice of it. And I loved it.
I think the word you might be dancing around is culture. Maybe culturally it's different.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea of you eating pizza and beer, looking over and seeing someone have charcuterie, and you're like, "Where are you from? This alien is not drinking pizza, not drinking beer and eating pizza."
No, it was just like I think also for me, for who I am, I was like, I want to be with that family.
I see.
Yeah, just a lot of fun. So yeah, anyway, that's up with me. What's up with you?
Shaved off my beard?
Yeah, if you're just listening to this, it's definitely jarring. It feels like, that feeling when you meet someone and they've been wearing a mask, and then they finally take off the mask, and you're like, oh, now I get the full picture of your face. That's what's going on with you.
We've known each other for 20 years. Most of that I didn't have a beard. So this should be like coming home to you.
Yeah, but like the years have not been kind, right?
Oh.
So the beard hid a lot of your, awkward stages. And so now I get to see it. And, it's definitely, that's your face, man. We love it.
Cool. Thanks, man. We're talking a little bit about creativity this week.
Yeah.
This
we
is what
are
we're talking about. And, I'm coaching. Did I tell you about this? I'm coaching.
No, I didn't know you were coaching. Who are you coaching?
I'm doing some coaching. What?
Who are you
coaching lots of people. Coaching people in Sweden. I'm coaching people in British Columbia. I'm also coaching people right here at home. And, we were kind of talking a little bit about, in one of my sessions, we were talking a little bit about playing at the precipice of not knowing. Really being out there. Really being in a scene that you have never done or seen before. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because I thought that was actually very interesting. This is very different than most other art forms because most other art forms have a kind of structure to it. For example, if I'm going to make a painting, it's most likely I'm going to use perspective to kind of structure my painting. So the first steps 1 through 5 are kind of the same. They're different. They're different images I'm drawing, but for the most part, I'm going to draw my horizon line. I'm going to draw my lines towards that horizon point. That process ultimately is the same. In improv, we can, if we want to, start completely from scratch. Have no presets, no anything, and just walk out on stage and create something new. But what I thought was interesting was we don't really do that. We don't really play completely original scenes. For the most part, we're very excited to explore structures that are familiar to us, and we're very excited to explore scenes where their content is familiar. Thoughts on that, AC?
Well, I don't know. I know you have much more of a history in the painting world, but the idea that a painter can make a bunch of choices and break away from, I don't know, a stereotypical structure, great. That only affects that painter. In improv, it's a little different because you're sharing this experience. And so if you want to go in there and you're thinking, you know what I'm going to do today is I'm going to fuck with this. I'm going to change everything up and I'm going to explore. And the rest of your Herald team is like, this is 1A. What the fuck are you doing? Why would you fuck us like this? We've got 25 more minutes to deal with this. Or you're in a one-act play. You start off a scene and you're like, I'm going to do a monologue with a person in the front row, and it's going to be every line's a different accent and a different physicality. I'm going to play 20 characters, and then I'll turn to my partner. I've never seen that being done. I'm like, well, you fucked me. You absolutely fucked me. So improv is a little different because I feel like this breaking free from structure, it really requires everybody to be on board. Even if it is something like, hey, Rob, I don't want you to do anything. Like, you don't need to follow me down this path, but are you cool if I try something a little different tonight? Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, man, go for it. There's no stakes to this. Then cool. But that's why I feel improv is such a unique case when we talk about creativity, is because there's so much tied in with agreement and support that the idea of taking these massive risks, there's some consequences that aren't in other art forms.
So this is very interesting to me. So I think you're completely right. Like, if I were to go and do something that was completely Dadaist, which is I'm just saying a bunch of random words and moving my body in a strange way, that would create a lot of problems for the person I'm playing with. But there's also the other end of the spectrum, which is I can walk on stage and do a scene with you where I say, hey, Adam, how's it going? I haven't seen you around the apartment recently. Just so you know, the rent was due last week, which is a kind of paint-by-numbers scene that is so familiar to us. We have all played this scene 10,000 times. And so we're living in between these worlds where there are scenes that are closer to this kind of out-of-the-box paint-by-numbers scene, and then there is something that is like nonsense, and they're in between. You also mentioned painters, and I thought that was an interesting comparison. When we talk about someone like, for example, Pablo Picasso, or in Montreal there was a really cool group of painters called the Automatistes. Both these groups of people, I should say, the Cubists and the Automatistes, they painted in different ways that was quite shocking to the community. But it wasn't like every painting they were changing up the way that they painted. So Picasso's Cubism is a through line. He's painted Guernica, he's painted Mademoiselle d'Avignon, he's done all of these paintings all using the exact same techniques of Cubism, and now is repeating those techniques to kind of pump them out like a factory. In improv, I guess we could also do that as well too, but we try not to. We try not to create scenes in a similar style with similar content. For us, for whatever reason, that's not good enough. That's not acceptable. If you played the same character every show, I'd be like, Adam, switch it up, man.
Yes, 100%. But going off of your example of this Cubism being regurgitated again and again with different muses, isn't that a herald? Isn't that any structure where it's like, yep, we 1A, 1B, 1C, yep, then we go to group game, yep, we're just pumping it out like a factory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, the Herald would be a really good example of, if we're talking about that spectrum, about things that are preconceived and things that are completely original. I would argue that the Herald isn't great for originality. I don't think you're going to see the most original scenes while doing a Herald. What you're going to see is a cluster of scenes that are familiar to us that most often work best in a Herald. Thinking about some very good Heralds that we've seen. Think about Heralds at the UCB. What do those feel like? What do those look like? And in fact, I would say that house style, that theater style, is so well defined that you could kind of see the tone in one show transposed into the tone of another. So now it's not only I'm not doing original scenes, I'm not doing something different than what I did last show. I'm not doing something different than the troupe before me just did. We're all doing the exact same thing. And I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a reason why we are kind of so scared of the pure, untrammeled forces of originality. But I guess we can get to that a little bit later. Do you have any other thoughts about this section about originality or creativity?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think those terms bother me a little. Like the you bring up originality, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? Usually, like, I hear that term when it's like something weird or something bizarre. And you're like, oh my God, it was so original. It's like, yeah. I guess, as you said, with the Picasso thing, it's like, my example would be like Nathan Fielder. Nathan Fielder does a lot of things that I just would never do. And not because they're either one's right or wrong. It's just like, oh, that's not the way my brain works. So like, that doesn't interest me, or I'm not interested in exploring that. So we take The Rehearsal, right? I really enjoyed it. Very complicated and weird show. Perfect for Nathan Fielder. So is that like a creative risk for Nathan? I don't know. My thought would be, what if Nathan Fielder sincerely was like, I'm going to do my absolute best in a rom-com. And it's going to be me and, my God, I don't know, some other fucking rom-com expert.
Kristen Bell.
And it's like, I'm going to do my absolute best to have a great meet cute, and I'm going to be charming, and I'm going to have a pratfall, and I'm going to do all of those things. That, for me, is a risk, a massive original creative risk for Nathan Fielder. It's not for Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd doing The Rehearsal, we'd all be like, what the fuck happened to Paul Rudd? Oh my God, like he's in his new stage of creativity. So the idea that something can be original or something is creative and creatively exciting, I think it's too blanket of a term. It really depends on the individual. Because if there's an improviser who's like, they step on stage and they're a maniac, right? You never know which way they're going to go, which character they're going to be. It's like, cool. Can you enter a scene at a 1 and let your partner initiate? Can you cut some carrots and then tell your scene partner that you've missed them? That would be a massive creative risk and original for that person, but not for another. Like it feels like it has to be specific to the person.
It's interesting because, yeah, while you were describing that, Nathan Fielder doing a rom-com would be a risk and something new to him, but not new to rom-coms. We would just be watching another comedian do a rom-com badly. So I think that's a really interesting point. I think one of the things that maybe makes it a little bit different, and maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be, and maybe that's what this discussion is this built into improv that it's required that the individual try something new each and every time they come on stage? Or is it okay that I do Jorge the Mexican waiter in every show. Is that acceptable? Is that okay? Maybe the format, we're doing a Herald one night, a deconstruction the next night, something else the other night, and I'm playing my rogues gallery of characters that I've perfected and honed, and it's completely okay within improv to bring them out each and every show.
Yeah, I think, again, maybe I just come by this from a very, like, black and white viewpoint, but it's like, yeah, it depends. What's your job? What's this show? If this show is Saturday night corporate gig theater sports, then I could care less what you do. You have a job to do. If you do it well and the audience loves it and wants to come back and the company makes their bottom line and they're like, hey, that was a success, great. That would not be the place where I test out this new style that I'm trying, where like every third word I do this physical thing. It's like, no, why would you do it there?
Right, but let's talk about, because I'd say for most improvisers who are doing corporate work, we all probably agree with you. I'm going to pull out my tricks because I don't care. I just want to get paid. I want to get that free bar, and then peace, I'm out. Get a snack. But I think what we're talking about here is, okay, this is your show, this is your festival, this is you, this is your brand. And I guess the question is for you, is it important in your practice as an improviser that you are challenging yourself, that it is a creative process, that things are original? Or are you okay with playing the same character 2 nights in a row? Because I think it would bother me.
Yeah. I think it's like not doing that, not making sure that you are challenging yourself. It's ordering the mild salsa, right? It's covering your eyes during the gory parts of a movie where you're like, you're doing this risky art form, but you're not really doing it. You're not getting the full bang for your buck. You're walking along the tightrope with a harness and a net, which is fine. But I think for people who are thinking, I love this thing. This thing gets my heart going. I love dissecting it. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably you. Absolutely. I want the full experience. And the full experience means I'm teetering on failure a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you can make it through with, maybe you fall off that cliff, but maybe, Rob, you reach down and you grab me just before and you pull me back up. Like those moments, those are some of the most, that's what improv has to offer you if you're willing to go there. It also has, I made that Simpsons reference in class today and I got a big laugh. Mm-hmm. That's another thing it can offer you. But I think if you want to get the most out of this thing, then yes, being original and creative from within yourself, wherever you are at your current journey, that's going to push you forward because it's going to open up new emotional possibilities of, I tried this thing today and it failed, or I tried this thing and it worked. Oh my God, I was so scared. And then afterward, you're like, I did it. Like, it's just, yeah, I think yes, it is very important just because you're going to get the full impact that improv has to offer you.
I was coaching this team and we were doing this very simple exercise about direct energy, which is something we talked about earlier in the podcast. You can check out one of our earlier episodes. But basically the way it works is you say a line of dialogue and then I respond to not what you said, but how you said it. And so I was going through these exercises with this team, and one player on the team started to play, and as they played, they would instantly make it about the context. So they're playing, I want to be emotional, I want to do this thing. You all, let's go eat a sandwich. Whoa, that's very hostile. That's the direct energy piece. No, I really think we should go eat a sandwich. Well, the sandwich store is closed. And we went, whoa, stop. Did you see how you just put it towards the sandwich store? We're not doing that. We're trying to make this about the other person. So we did it again, and it drifts back to the who, what, where, and then drifts again back to the who, what, where. And so I'm just trying to figure out why. Why is this happening? And so I'm talking with the improviser, and he says, I know where it should go. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I've seen other people do it, and I've done a little bit of it myself, and I know it works. But for whatever reason, I can't stop going to this other space, the space that I know, like familiar kind of roommate fighting breakup scenes. Mm-hmm. And for me in that moment, I went, oh my God, like I think what you're experiencing is the discomfort of really being out there, really trying a scene that you sincerely do not know how it's supposed to go. And that discomfort is so overwhelming. You're like putting a baby in a bathtub that doesn't know how to swim. You're scrambling to grab the side of the tub as quickly as you can because you think you're going to drown. And for me, the whole point of improv is not knowing how to swim, going into the deep end, and then somehow pulling a front crawl out of it, which is magic if you think about it, really. And there are some tools that we use, and there's some structures that we kind of cheat our way through it. But when we aren't cheating, when we aren't using something like the Herald or short form to protect us, interacting with that kind of pure creativity, I would argue, a scene that you really don't understand where it should go or what you should do within it, is incredibly challenging. It's incredibly hard. But I also don't know if there's too much value for me in improv that isn't trying to do that.
And when you say that, do you mean as an audience or as a participant?
I mean, as an audience member, I am obviously deeply involved in this art form. So I'm not a regular audience member. Maybe regular audience members go, "Oh, you made a joke about the Leafs. I love that." But for me, as someone who is myself watching a show, I'm going, "Oh, okay, we're doing that scene again. I've seen that scene 1,000 times. I've seen you personally, Adam Cawley, do that scene 50 times. I'm going to the bar. I can extrapolate what's going to happen in my head at the bar because I know what you do. I know how the scene works. See you later." Then there are other times when you're watching someone play and you're going, I literally don't know what you're doing here. This is you're an insane person. I think I mentioned this on the podcast earlier, that there was a scene at the show that we run, which is Party Hard, Hard Party, and this guy, Sharjah Rasul, was improvising with Trisha Black, who's on like a bunch of Canadian TV shows. And the scene goes, Trisha's driving, and Sharj goes, she goes, "Are you here for the Uber?" He goes, "No, I'm here to rob you." And she goes, "Oh, I'm here to be robbed. I actually wanted to be robbed, and I've been waiting for this." And this is like a 10-minute scene. I'm like, you guys are nuts. Like, what are you doing? You don't start a scene this way. This is an insane way to start a scene. And then I watched them play it, and the scene worked out beautifully. It was the most like wild thing I've ever seen. No improviser that I know would start that way and be able to like land that trick, and they did perfectly. And that was a scene I stayed for the entire scene because I was like, I gotta know how you guys do this, or I gotta see you guys fail. Either you guys pull it off or you fail, but I gotta stay till the end. That's exciting.
And I think as audience members, normal or improv audience members, it's not that we give the benefit of the doubt, but it's like we understand that what you're doing isn't normal or is a risk, and therefore we're thrilled with the funny parts, we're thrilled with the awkward parts, because we know, oh my God, like we're watching you on the tightrope and you're like, uh-oh, I'm slowly falling, I'm falling. And we're here for it. We're not like getting uncomfortable. We're thinking, oh my God, they're right on the edge. This could collapse any moment. Versus, as you said, the roommate, you drank my milk, where I want my cereal, there's no more milk. What are we going to do? You slept with my girlfriend? What? Like, just that kind of shit. We're like, oh, you've just set up a bland context where wit could get you through, a big surprise could get you through. We've all been there. But to be in a place or to set up a context where even if it's not unique to you, when you see people do something and those people, you know them, you get excited when they're taking a risk for them, whatever that means to them. If I started with a song in an improv show, you'd be like, well, that's weird. But you'd be like, holy shit, Adam's singing an improv song right now? Like, I got to see this. This is appointment viewing because it could fall off the rails at any moment. And we know that that's not something I typically do. So I don't know if you talked to Sharjul or Trisha afterwards, but I'd love to know what was their feeling during that. Because I could imagine Sharjul may have thought, oh, Trisha's going to put her hands up and be like, okay, here's my wallet. This is what you do in a robbery scene. And for Trisha to be like, oh, I'm just doing very basic improv. I'm yes-anding Sharjul. Sure. Oh, you're here to rob me? Great. This is exactly perfect. Yes, I'm here to be robbed. And Sharjul's like, wait, what? Oh, and now we have two people being like, we're holding this hot potato, passing it back and forth, being like, someone's going to drop it. That's exciting for everybody involved. Of course, the flip side of this is that it does fail. And the people on stage have a bad memory of that show and a bad time. The people in the audience have a bad time because they didn't enjoy what they watched. And we take away the lesson of, I shouldn't do that again. That's the very real and potential flip side, and one that we know is possible when we have to say that will happen from time to time. But that shouldn't deter us going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you were talking about when you fail, it hurts. You're hurt by your failure, right? And so when we fail in that way, there's a vulnerability there. And it only makes sense for us as artists to try and mitigate that risk. And so whether we realize it or not, we start creating different heuristics to protect us. And it could be something like short form. It could be something like the Herald, right? These are outside structures that we just kind of are just following what we're supposed to be doing. We don't have to worry about that. There are mind games that we play. Anytime someone, if before a show, I go, what do you want to do tonight? And someone says, I just want to have fun. My first thought is, fuck off. Because you are saying that in my head, you are saying that as, I'm not going to try.
Right.
Like I'm saying, I'm just here to have fun. I'm not going to try and do anything different. I'm not going to try and push anything forward. If it doesn't go well, no worries. I'm just kind of showing up, going to do my jokes, then I'm going to leave. And I'm like, okay. And I also have that mindset. I've said that before. I've said, let's just have a good time tonight. But I do think there's a safety in that. You're checking out of the show by doing that in a certain way.
Yeah, and I think going in, and I've classically and unfortunately been that person to be like, ooh, it'd be cool tonight? What if we tried this? And people's response is, oh, well, okay, that sounds like a lot of work, or that sounds like... But I'm always, I get my back up about this, and it's like, oh, if you're just going out to have fun, do it at a jam, or do it at a thing that it doesn't... Set up your own show called the Rob Norman Fun Show, where all we do every Thursday night is have fun. That's it.
You're telling this to someone else?
Yeah, start the Rob Norman...
No, don't use my name. Don't use my name.
I got a few messages about, I don't know if you said it or I said it, but when we were talking about like fighting corporate culture, and it was like the Atom Army, someone made the people in Austin, Texas at Amoeba, our friends over at Amoeba, made a big poster of the Atom Army.
No.
I swear to God. And then a few other people reached out to me about like their own Atom Army stories of like, you know what I did one time? I called up Rogers Cable and I said this and this. No. Anyway, shout out Amoeba. If you want to do any style of improv that you want to do, just create your own show. Create your own show, and that can be your vehicle for, hey, no one can get mad or be upset about this. I've laid out the ground rules. And if you're in a show and you don't have something that you need to accomplish or you want to accomplish, you can follow the lead of someone who does, or just give yourself the challenge of, I'm going to work on blank. Even if you're really good at it, just a focus to keep you from flailing and making choices that might negatively affect everybody else.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And there's something really beautiful about trying to do something impossible, but still trying your best. The idea that you go out there and you're doing everything stacked against me. There's no way that we're going to pull off this show. And you fail. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing to watch. I think the issue is when we set our bar so low, when we're not trying to do anything new, and we're not trying in the show, that the format isn't challenging to us, it's not exciting to us, and then we fail in that arena, that to me is the saddest form of improv I can watch.
It's such a gross feeling.
Gross.
You're totally right. I'm on the same page of like, if I fail after giving it my all, that's something I can brush off easy. I'm just like, I don't know, man. The audience hated me. I just didn't have it tonight. I don't know. I actually gave it my all. Versus I was lazy and I thought I could talk my way through this thing, make enough quips, and then that fails. Ew, what a gross feeling you can never get off. Ooh, I hate it.
Yeah. And you're seeing, sometimes you'll see this with really good people who've been playing together for a long time, people that you look up to, and they're all playing in a set together, and they know each other very well. And what you watch looks like a kind of like inside baseball kind of joke generating, everyone sitting on chairs talking into microphones kind of show. And I can only imagine if you're in the audience, a student, you're going, these are all of my heroes. How do they all create something so bad, and so lazy? And to me, that is a gross feeling. I definitely have been, I've participated in those shows. I've produced those shows. I may have been the reason why that show started or why we took that turn. But yeah, for me, there's a great shame in that. I worry about the idea of prioritizing our fun and our comfort over finding something original and unique to play in the scene.
And I think the opposite is true as well, of the deep shame and failure that you feel when you don't try and still fail. The reward on the other side of that coin of you not trying and succeeding, yeah, that's a nice little feather in your cap. But really trying something, really expanding your horizons and succeeding, whatever that means to you, ooh-wee, I can ride that for weeks, right? Like, it basically, the lesson is if you try, either way, you're going to come out on the other side better than if you don't, success or failure.
Right. And the feeling might be, if I try at X and I can't do it, that means I'm not good enough to do X, and I'm a fraud, and I am revealed. And that, I think, is the problem. Because, again, this is about imposter syndrome. It's about vulnerability. It's about putting yourself out there and really exposing yourself. Like think about going... Okay, let's take a step back. I was part of a theater program at York University, and the first year they had these auditions, and you have to audition. I got in, so I started doing a year of York. Had a great time, met a lot of cool people, met a lot of instructors who I'm glad I don't keep in touch with. At the end of that year, you have to audition again, a very mean-spirited practice. And part of the audition is you have to sing a song. But, AC, get this, there's no pianist. So you have to sing it a cappella. If you can think about how horrible that is. A bunch of people, no one's done any singing lessons, no one's done any training. Like, people are singing full 4-minute songs.
Oh my God.
On their own. It's like really bad karaoke. Unless you are prepared to offer yourself up to the improv gods in the way that you can imagine a theater student singing a song without training a cappella in front of 30 of their peers, then I don't think we're doing it. I think we're doing something that looks a lot like improv, but I'm starting not to see the value in it.
I was just working with on a show, and if you've ever worked in TV or been a part of anything like that, you know how many times you have to rehearse and do things for the lighting and the cameras and all of that, and sometimes you're not on camera and you've got to do your lines just for the people who are on camera, and you've already done it for hours. There was one person who every single time gave it their all. It's like you don't really need to do. You can have your script in hand and just say the things. And this woman hit her marks every time. No camera could possibly see her. And she gave it her absolute all every single time. And instantly I was like, oh, you are setting such a good example. You are leading the way. And all anyone could ever say to you is, God, she gives it her all every time, as if that's a negative. And then watching others in that same group not do that. Oh, and I think when we think about that for improv, it's like, why phone any show in? And I think it all comes down to, well, it's a small crowd. Well, it's a Tuesday. Well, it's this. And it's like, well, then don't show up. That's the gig, right? I'm not on camera, so why bother? It's like, no, that's the gig. You have to do this. And I think if in that small crowd you host and you get that suggestion as professionally and charming and efficiently as you can, and then you play the shit out of those scenes and you act your heart out and you support whoever you're with, and the show doesn't go well, you feel like, God, I should have just phoned it in. But I think that's a dangerous habit to get into, because I think then it's a slippery slope into, oh, there's only 10 people here, whatever. Oh, there's only 20 here. Ugh. God, there's only 30. Oh my God. And you just start to think, God, you're just someone who phones it in.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. Thinking about rock stars. I was thinking about rock stars as I was writing up the notes for this episode. And I was thinking about drugs within music. Like why are people obsessed with doing drugs? Why do so many great musicians end up overdosing and dying? And the best answer I could come up with was, after you have figured it out, after you figured out a formula that works for you. For example, the Beatles. The Beatles wrote a bunch of pop songs that everyone went, universally, these are perfect. You wrote perfect pop songs for the time period. There's no one bigger than the Beatles. They had a choice to either keep going or stop. They chose to keep going, but they couldn't ad nauseum create more of the same kind of I want to hold your hand type songs. So they have to do something new. Well, how do you do something new? How do you find something that's different and unique and creative? Well, that's where that trip to India comes from. That's where psychedelics come from. Because now what you're doing is you're destabilizing the thing that you're good at. You could write a song that is like all of your other songs, but now you've kind of handicapped yourself in a weird way, and now you're going to try and write a song. And now the song's a little bit off. It's not perfect. It might not be as melodic. And now you have this process of trying to, with this new style that you've kind of stumbled into by mistake, now you have this new process of trying to make that into something workable. You're trying to make that into a hit. And so if you look at the Beatles catalog, and I know nothing about the Beatles other than that documentary we watched together, but you get these songs where like Paul McCartney's like, this one, we got to bang a hammer. Got to bang a hammer on an anvil. I'm like, is that a good song? No, that song sucks. But I've never heard anything like it. I've never heard someone try and bang an anvil in the middle of a pop song. And that in itself makes it interesting and different. And because it's interesting and different, I go, oh, well, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought it was. Because it's sticky in a way that maybe a very good pop song in a sea of other very good melodic pop songs doesn't stick out. That's my thought about the protection. Either we're going to protect ourselves and phone it in, we're not going to try hard, or we're going to go this opposite route, which is something that you seem to really hate, which is like chasing the weird, which I think happens to a lot of artists late in their career.
I don't know if it's chasing the weird that bothers me. I think when the weirdness is coupled with the not trying.
Okay.
And I think it's like, hey, watch this. I'm not even going to listen in this scene. I'm going to pretend I'm doing a scene with an invisible person. It's going to be crazy. Watch. And you're like, oh, that doesn't seem weird. It seems like you're setting up a context where you're telling everyone this is so risky, it's going to fail. So that if it succeeds, you look like a fucking genius. And if it fails, you're like, yeah, see, I told you. Doing a scene, not listening. Huh, whatever. That's the thing that bothers me.
Playing to lose. You don't like seeing people play to lose.
Or play with a cavalier attitude that undercuts what other people are trying to accomplish. Again, if that's your bag, that's fine. But make sure that you're not affecting other people with this.
Yeah.
That I think is the thing that I'm less interested in.
I think these experiments are really exciting. And it's okay that they don't all work out. But I think allowing yourself to have the actual experience is what's exciting. Like, you and I both play on this team Strike, which is part of the Assembly, and there's a show called The Experiment. Before your time, we used to do these pretty weird shows at Bad Dog. And I think it was a lot of us trying to find ways to make improv more challenging for ourselves and to try and see if we could pull off things that no one had ever done before. Let me give you an example of one of the worst things we ever made up. This is a terrible idea, Adam, and please don't do it on stage. It's horrible. So, it was 3 people. I think it was like me, Ken Hall, and Becky Johnson. And we decided that what we were going to do is we were going to play a 30-minute set. And for the first, I think, 7 minutes of the set, we were going to do first beats entirely in our head. So we sat on stage and we imagined what the first beats were going to be. And the promise to the audience was we were all, in a Del Close fashion, we were all in the astral plane and we were all exchanging messages. And when the 7 minutes was up, we would just continue the show from the astral world to the physical world that you could all interact with. And it would be magical because you would watch us all kind of like pop right into it. I'm going to tell you, when we started improvising, we were not improvising the same show. That's for sure. It was a real dog's breakfast. And I think built into that was failure. I mean, if it had worked, I would be on this podcast being like, oh, by the way, I do magic now. And that would be awesome. But it didn't work. And it was a real dog's breakfast. And it was a friendly audience of improvisers and students who had seen us improvise enough that they were willing to tolerate this because they had seen all of our tricks. They were excited for us to see what happened when we pushed ourselves really, really far.
And the show
But-
is called The Experiment. And you
Yeah.
explain that you just created this thing.
Yes.
So that for me is like that is what I love is that we're sincerely trying this thing. You've signed up for this, audience.
Mm-hmm.
So have we on stage, and we're all in agreement. That is lovely.
Right. And the experience of that, I don't know what it was like for the audience, but the experience of that being on stage was awesome. It was so cool. That moment where we all opened our eyes and started improvising the show, and it was so bad, Adam. It was such a mess. But I was so excited because I didn't know. Maybe we would pull it off. Maybe it would work this time. That magical thinking was exciting for me. Can you think of any shows that you've been in or you've done that felt like original or different to you?
I mean, the one that you directed, the Herald Experience, was definitely a challenge. That this was part of a Fringe festival.
Yeah, so it's part of the Next Stage Festival. So Fringe has this mid-season festival where they invite people to put together pieces, and we were chosen. The assembly was chosen to put on a piece.
Yeah, and like the first beats of this, I think it had to be an hour or something. And it was like a Herald that has to be an hour. Oh boy! And the first 3 beats after an organic opening, they had to be 7 minutes. And if you've ever been in a scene where you're like, this scene's over, why is no one editing? And then 4 more minutes happen? Whoa. And most nights I'd say that show was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 1 or 2 of like the 10 show run was like good.
Yeah.
But that every night I was like, I don't know how we're going to pull this off. And some scenes I was in, I'm like, holy shit, we're doing it. Like, we're in front of an audience of like theater goers.
Yep.
This isn't an improv theater
Yep.
or audience.
Yep.
So that was exhilarating. And I would say a massive learning experience, but also a very unique improv experience that I don't think a lot of people get.
It was interesting directing the Herald Experience. My leg was broken, so I was watching all of those shows from crutches. And I remember watching you guys play, and it was like spinning plates. We were able to get the first beats going, and then the group games would fall apart. And then I get the group games going, and then the opening would fall apart. And then everyone would get it, and then one person wouldn't. And then someone was sick, so we had an understudy in, and that reset everything. But it was amazing in that process because I don't think in Toronto anyone has ever really tried to say, hey, we're going to make a Herald that people pay for. And this was the first, I feel like, attempt to do that. We had to. We were doing a very prestigious festival with a bunch of people who weren't improvisers, who weren't on our side. And we were trying to not give them an easy digestible form. We wanted to do a Herald. We wanted to make the Herald work. And I feel like if we had kept working at it, like if this wasn't a 10-show run, if those people, your cast, had continued to do this every week, we would have had the most incredible Herald of all time. But the issue is when that festival ended, everyone went their separate ways. And then nobody continued to rehearse the Herald. Nobody continued to like fine-tune the things that you were building. And so we kind of reverted back to this like very laissez-faire Herald. Well, I would love to see every improv show act as if, even the dumb shows, act as if you own the theater. Act as if everyone hates it, your business goes under.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tall order because it's like, oh, when we were coming out of college, it's like, yeah, I've got 5 nights free a week. 100% I do. To go and rehearse in Jeff's basement, yeah, I'm there. And then, especially with so many theaters closing down and the pandemic. It's been really hard, but I think now is an exciting time of people who are going out. There's been years of people who have only done improv online. Mm-hmm. And there's an opportunity around the corner to say, hey, you've never seen this stuff, audience. So we're going to make your introduction to it the best it can possibly be. We're not going to go and have fun. We're going to rehearse this thing, and then we're going to promote this thing, and we're going to work at this thing so that when you leave, you're thinking, God, I want to not only see this again, but I want to start doing that thing. Mm-hmm. And for the people involved, giving you a sense of, right, I remember the feelings that I had years ago. This excitement of, I don't know if it's going to work. Because we can all go out and have fun. But that feeling of, God, I don't know what's going to happen tonight. Putting yourself in that position, I think, will lead to the best work. Because that fight or flight mode is kind of like what drives so much of my improv when I'm in a position where I'm like, I don't know what this is. Oh my God, I don't know if the audience is into this or not. I don't even know whom I'm playing with. Oh my God, what is the structure? Oh geez, okay, I'm a guest on this show? All right. And then we go for it. But I don't think I've ever hosted a party, gone on a date, had a travel where I'm thinking, well, I'll just see how it goes. I'm having people over? Yeah, that's not the way I roll. I'm very much like, if I want this to be if I want to get the most out of it, I got to put the work in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is the big problem in improv. So if you told me right now, Rob put together a show, I can find you 12 people to work hard who are going to give me the time I want to rehearse and give me everything they have. They are all new improvisers. I can find people who have experience, who I can count on the scenes are going to be great, so we don't have to work on building skills or game of the scene. We can just focus on the form. Are those people going to try? Are those people going to show up to rehearsal? Without being paid, of course. No. Even if I do put them in the show, they're probably going to kind of rest on their laurels. So when we're assembling these shows, how do I synthesize the perfect improviser? If I could take the eagerness of the new person and mix it with the experience of the older person, then we could do some really cool stuff. But a lot of directing and a lot of producing now is kind of managing people who are experienced, people who are high level, are probably busy, they're probably successful, they're doing TV and film, they have families, they have other obligations, they're trying to make money from this. That's always going to take precedent over rehearsing your Herald. So how do you create buy-in for those people? It's a very tricky situation, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. But I feel like whoever is able to unlock that kind of puzzle box is going to end up with a real menu, incredible menu of really great shows. Mm-hmm. Okay. Adam, any other thoughts about interacting with creativity, interacting with originality?
I would hope that anyone who might feel like intimidated, maybe after listening to this, of like, God, I want my next show to be like good. I want to be creative and original. It's like, it's going to be different for everybody. It's not a one-stop shop. This is something that you can dip your toe in. I'm doing a show tonight. I'm trying to show this team that I belong here, and I'm trying to do their thing. Well, maybe choose one scene where you go out of your comfort zone to start, right? We can start small. We don't have to think, my night tonight, I'm gonna blow up this whole show with the way I perform. You can take it one step at a time, depending on your situation, and whatever original or creative is, it's gonna be unique to you. So take a second, self-assess, and think, what would be something that is not very me or something I've avoided versus, God, Jeff on stage, he does this wacky thing. I got to figure out how to be more Jeff. That might be original for Jeff. Doesn't have to be for you.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, you and I had our minds blown in Chicago at the I.O. because someone improvised an object work ponytail.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I still talk about that moment. The minute he just did this, we just lost our mind and we're like, you can do that? That's not a data is performance. It's just thinking of object work and mind work in a different way. So very, very cool. Yeah. And I feel like I'm going to go the opposite way. This whole episode is not a critique of our community. It really is a critique of me. Bring it on. I want to do original things now. I don't want to be resting on my laurels. I want to create work that I feel challenged by and feels like it's pushing forward. And so, AC, if you see me playing that wizard, except on weekends, I can play wizards on weekends.
You have a cheat day.
Cheat day. But every other time, I want to be doing something where people go, well, he's really going for it. He can't do a German accent. It's clear after tonight's show he can't do a German accent, but he went for it. Good for him. What is one thing on stage or off stage that is inspiring you?
My wife and I have been traveling a bit back and forth, and something that we do is we check out every city's pizza places. And we try and get a couple slices every place we go and just try out. And in LA, the best pizza I've had, Apollonia's Pizza. And I think it's Greek, but it was just like, just like LA. It's in a tiny strip mall in the most
Sorry, what city is this?
Pardon me?
What city is this in?
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry.
And just in some strip mall, tiny little place. Like, I think it's only takeout. I don't think you can even sit inside. But it was the most glorious pizza I've had in the longest time. I've been getting really into it. So like now I look at certain pizzas and I'm like, oh, it's just so thick and doughy, and it really like turns me off. So when I find like a nice, soft but crispy, foldable, long, big slice, very nice. So if you're in LA at all, check it out. It was my fave.
You were describing my physique. Soft but crispy, very long.
Foldable?
Foldable. That's my body. Not foldable. Not foldable. My cool thing is, strangely enough, a stand-up special. I don't watch stand-up. Do you?
Not often. I mean, if there is like a big special or something, maybe. But yeah.
But the person who does love watching stand-up is my wife, and she watched. She watched and then forced me to watch against my will Chappelle's new, it's not a special, it's him giving a speech to a art school that he was going to have named after him. I think it's called What's in a Name. It's on Netflix. And a lot of this episode came from some of the challenges that he said. You know, one of the challenges that he was talking about was creating bodies of work that last the test of time. And that, as someone whose entire career is part of a disposable art form, I was just thinking, what do you have to leave behind? Well, you have a cool book. I created a pretty popular form that traveled the world. I have a podcast. You know, we tell people that we were in a troupe for 15 years. That was very successful. The most popular in Toronto, long form show. But beyond that, you go, cool, as time marches on, what is the work that you're doing and why does it matter? And I think that's a really interesting question for us as improvisers. So much of our community is people who are learning how to do this. But once you've learned how to do this, what do you do with it? What are the things that you build? And why do those things matter? Those are the big questions from this special. I know that Dave Chappelle is not everyone's cup of tea. So if you have issues with him, don't watch it. But if you're able to sit through it, some interesting conversations about creativity, originality, and creating things that last.
Interesting. Cool. I guess you could watch it with some pizza. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you could Two birds it.
Whoa. Mind meld. The improv game Mind Meld.
Let's do the next podcast in our minds.
Well, thank you so much. This podcast is produced by the Sonar Network. You can check us out on Twitter, on Instagram, at the Backline Pod. Adam is there. If you're part of the Adam Army, let him know. Send your art to him. Send your pictures. Send pictures of you in the Adam Army uniform, and we'll definitely post on all our social media accounts. Thanks so much, Adam.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Staring back at me.